Let's talk about Philodendron Pink Princess Care. Philodendron Pink Princess is a plant with pink variegation. Let's have a look at the pink variegation here. The interesting thing about Philodendron Pink Princess is that some leaves will be almost completely green, while others will be burgundy color. And there's even some, and that's why it got its name, with pink variegation. It can have like fully variegated leaves that are entirely pink, or there can be like streaks of pink. Let's have a look at how to care for Philodendron Pink Princess. Let's start with soil. In terms of soil, Philodendron Pink Princess needs well-draining soil. What I use usually is aroid soil. That means that it is soil that has chunky bits inside, such as orchid bark, perlite and peat. This will help the drainage, so if you water the plant, it will drain instantly. So any soil will work as long as it's well draining. If it's very compact, the water cannot drain, so you need chunky bits that help the drainage. Because roots also need oxygen. That's something people do not know. That's why it's important to have air gaps and holes where oxygen can flow through. Let's talk about watering. In terms of watering, I water my Philodendron Pink Princess about once a week. But this is just a general rule of thumb because it depends on many different factors. So the temperature, the level of light intensity, all these factors have an impact on how much or how little you need to water it. And also, of course, the pot size and the potting medium you're using. So what I usually do is I take my index finger, I put it into the soil up to 1 inch or 2, and then I see if it's still wet, like if particles are sticking on my finger, I know I shouldn't water it. Only if it's completely dry, I will then water the plant. That's a general rule of thumb. I'm using tap water to water my Philodendron Pink Princess. If you can provide rainwater, what also works is reverse osmosis water or distilled water. That's perfect because it doesn't have so much pollutants in it, but tap water works just fine. In terms of temperature, the ideal temperature range for this plant is 60 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit. That's 16 to 27 degrees Celsius. If it gets colder than around 55 or something, it can really hurt and damage your plant. As long as you stay within that range, you're absolutely fine and your plants should be thriving. So also this temperature is just like general household temperatures. It shouldn't be very difficult to achieve it. In terms of humidity, the more humidity, the better, I usually say, for philodendron and also monstera plants. So at least provide it with 50% humidity if you can. Like everything more is just better. So if you have 60-70% humidity, that's just perfect. You will see your plants growing much faster and your Philodendron Pink Princess producing bigger leaves. But 50% is totally fine. What you can use is a humidifier. It will really help to increase the humidity for your house plant. And also another great tip is to just put plants very close together, so the ambient humidity is going to be much higher just like that. So in terms of lighting, let's talk about lighting for a second. Philodendron Pink Princess does very well in bright indirect light. So indirect means that no rays are shining directly on the leaves of your Philodendron Pink Princess, because if you would have bright direct light for multiple hours, let's say 5 or 6 hours a day, what it would lead to is that they might scorch and burn. So bright indirect light is best. You can use an east-facing window or a west-facing window. East-facing will have a couple of hours of direct sunlight in the morning. That's just fine. What you don't want is in the afternoon or at midday, bright direct light, because it's really, really strong and intense. Also, of course, you can always use artificial lighting, a grow light. The closer the color temperature is to natural light, the better. So 5600 Kelvin, something around that is just perfect for a Philodendron Pink Princess. In terms of pests, I had several issues with pests. It's pretty hard to see. I had thrips and also mealybugs. What you can use to get rid of those is to really spray and spritz your plant with water every couple of days. You can use neem oil and beneficial nematodes. I've been talking about these in my past videos. These are all things you can do to get rid of pests, but what you really have to do is you have to isolate and remove your houseplant from the other plants that are not infected, because otherwise pests are going to spread really, really quickly. Well, what else to tell about this plant? In terms of growth, what I would recommend is that you use a moss pole. I'm not using a pole currently, but Philodendron Pink Princess will be climbing and will get taller and taller. And if you can provide any kind of support, this will greatly help for this houseplant to reach maturity and grow bigger and bigger leaves. So within a couple of leaves, within a couple of months, I should provide a moss pole here as well. I'm using these Lechuza planters. These are self-watering pots. They have a water reservoir down in here. So what I do is I water them, and they are watered for 3 to 4 weeks at a time. Therefore, I don't have to water them too much. I use these with the water reservoir down here. It lasts for 3 to 4 weeks. And these planters and also the Lechuza pond, the substrate, work great for me. I can just quickly show you how that looks like. Let's try to not drop the plant here. This is the water reservoir, and you see here that the plant is constantly watered with these pots. Fertilizer. In terms of fertilization, I usually fertilize my Philodendron Pink Princess every 2 to 4 weeks. And I only do this in spring and summer because this is the main growing season for houseplants. And if you fertilize in autumn and winter, this is not really advisable because plants are not really growing that much, and if you over fertilize, it's going to burn the roots and really hurt and damage the plant. So I fertilize every 2 to 4 weeks. What I usually use is a diluted balanced fertilizer with NPK 10-10-10 or 20-20-20. This way you have all the nutrients the plant needs, and I dilute it to half or even a third strength. You could also fertilize it every other week, but then you just have to dilute it more. But the best is if your houseplant has constant fertilizer. What you also can use instead of liquid fertilizer is slow release fertilizer. So these usually last for 3 or 4 months. These are like small balls that are within the soil, and you just let them be until they fully go away. I don't know how to say that, but then this way you constantly fertilize your plants. This is also a way how you can fertilize house plants. Potting. Let's talk about potting for a second. I think this pot is even a bit too big. Usually people choose too big a pot for their houseplants. The big problem then is that it becomes really, really difficult to water. You usually then overwater your plant. You give it too much water to fill up the pot, but still your houseplant, your Philodendron Pink Princess, cannot reach the water because the roots are not that long. So go for a smaller pot, and then you can always upgrade. Within a year or two, you can choose a bigger pot. I usually go about 1 inch or 2 for the next pot. Don't choose too big a pot because otherwise you won't see any growth. Your plant will be concentrated on growing longer and bigger roots, stronger roots, and you will not see any leaf growth. That's why choose a smaller pot like that. All right, let's talk about propagation. Philodendron Pink Princess is very easy to propagate, like most philodendron. The easiest thing you can do is just to take a stem cutting. When you do a stem cutting, what you need to be wary of is that you have at least 1 node. So I'm gonna try and show you here. It's usually the section that is a little bit bulky. There's often air roots growing out of it. It's close to the area where there is a leaf. These are the sections that you really need to propagate a Philodendron Pink Princess, because just a leaf is not enough for propagation. You need a node because this is where all the information for a new plant to form is in. Leaves usually are optional. You can propagate just with a little stem cutting, but if you have a leaf, it goes much, much quicker and faster. If you have 2 or 3 nodes, of course, you have lower chance of failure. So if you can take a bigger cutting, that's always advisable, and that's the way how I do it. Then once you cut the section, let it callus over for a couple of hours before you put it in any growing medium. What I use for propagation is usually sphagnum moss, because that works really well for me. Just make sure that it's not too wet and soggy. You have to press it out once you watered the sphagnum moss, and then you can just leave it in there. Or you can put it directly into water, which also works great. or if you are a little bit braver, you can put it in soil directly. But I prefer sphagnum moss. I then enclose it in a container with a lot of humidity. I have it completely enclosed. This way you have 90 to 100% humidity, and I put the heat map underneath it. So usually within 3 or 4 weeks you should see some root or leaf growth. Root growth is preferred. Very easy to propagate it like that. I propagate my houseplants in spring and summer because this is the main growing season for houseplants. You shouldn't do it in autumn and winter, but certainly you can. The only difference will be it will just take 2 or 3 times as much time because they will grow much better in spring and summer. This is the way I propagate Philodendron Pink Princess and all my houseplants. If you like our plant care videos, please subscribe to our channel, like the video, and also leave a comment. This way it's really going to help us with the Google algorithm, and it will help you to show more and more relevant videos for you. Thank you so much for watching. This was Philodendron Pink Princess Care, and please follow along for more plant care and gardening videos. Thank you so much. See ya.